Yeah, that's the big dog hunt. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Kallas Remarks with your host, Joe Staszak, co-host Steve Kallas. How you doing, my man? Happy 4th of July.
Same to you. Great to be with you as always, Joe.
You too, my friend. Not a ton going on, but there's a lot of movement in the NBA. LeBron picking up that $52 million option like he needs that, and some other things, weird things going on. Dame Lillard getting waived, Miles Turner going there, and the Knicks have a new coach, and your Knicks. I'm going with Mike Brown. Your thoughts on that?
Not against Mike Brown. I think he's an excellent coach. He's been around forever, but this is his fourth team. He was the coach of the year twice. He was the coach of the year 2 years ago with the Sacramento Kings, and then last December he got fired.
Yeah.
And I just,
True.
I just, again, I don't know how he's going to take them higher than Thibodeau. And I understand there are different kinds. Maybe he's more of a player's coach, as they like to say. It's shocking to me, and yes, I'm biased, but it's shocking to me. There's only one guy out there who's got a championship ring, and that's Mike Malone. And he never got a mention. I even Googled it yesterday. They said he was never considered, he was never interviewed. I'm not saying you had to hire him, although I think that would have been a great hire. Because again, he's the one guy out of all these guys who were, they were talking about a bunch of assistant coaches who were interviewed. Um, but only Mike Brown got a one-on-one with or the owner of the Knicks, who I forget. Oh, Dolan. So I guess he was lucky he did get the job, but I gotta say they're now pushing the fact that he has four rings as an assistant coach, two with Popovich in with the Spurs, and two with Kerr at the Warriors. And I'm not knocking Mike Brown. He's got four rings as an assistant, but that to me doesn't count. They always say the longest walk in basketball for coaching is from the second seat to the first seat. When in the old days they only had like one assistant, by the way. Um,
Yeah.
but do I
True.
think he's an upgrade from Thibodeau? Not really. Maybe because he's a player's coach or viewed to be more of a player's coach. But the notion that he's a better coach than Thibodeau, I don't even buy that. But, the Knicks are in a good position next year. Why? So far as we know, Joe, they're the only team that doesn't have a torn Achilles.
Yes, that's true.
I mean, Tatum, the
Tatum's gone for a while, and
Pacers,
Tyrese is out for a while. Might be a
yeah.
whole year. Can't tell
So,
you what a devastating loss both those injuries are.
right. So that kind of does open the door a little bit for the Knicks. Can they beat anybody in the West right now? I'm not sure. I don't think so, frankly. And I will mention SGA got his 4-year, $285 million Supermax extension with an opt-out in the year 2030,
Oh my Lord.
2031. And that's where we are. Four
Oh
years,
my Lord. Yep,
285
yep.
million.
Well, he's a
Uh,
champion. He's the MVP. That's what the going rate is, what the market will bear.
Yeah, I'm surprised they waived Lillard, but they did get Miles Turner. But as you know, Lillard's another one, frankly, with an Achilles.
Yeah,
He's not coming back for a while either. And look, there's lunatic money going around. I love Jaren Jackson. He's an all-star, right? 5 years, 240 million. Is he that good?
he's
He's
not.
still
I'm
good.
sorry. Yeah,
I mean, look, there's 20 of these things we could go down, but the Nuggets did get Cam Johnson, who is the one bright light for the Nets, who's a real scorer. And it looks like they need a real scorer besides Jokic. But as you know, Denver got hammered by more than 30 points three times in the playoffs, so I'm not counting them going much anywhere either. But again, there's so many of these signings, and a lot of them are for stupid money.
stupid money. Just stupid money. And LeBron, I mean, what is he doing in LA? He doesn't want to chase rings. He does want to chase rings. He wants to take most of their salary. 52
Well,
million.
you're right, but his agent came out with that statement, well, he really wants to win. So it's surprising that you would automatically pick up. I don't know if there was a deadline, but it was surprising to me that you could pick up that option so quickly. But maybe he wanted to do it before free agency, so the free agents will want to come and play with LeBron, whoever that may
That's
be.
true.
So, but they kind of need an upgrade. Didn't they just sign Aiton? I think Aiton's an upgrade at center position, but they need
They did. They did. Sonny Andre Ayton.
they need another real star.
I agree. And I don't think at this age he wants to move. He's got all his stuff there, his other businesses in LA, his family, and I think they might want to say that. Yeah, he wants to win. Of course, everyone wants to win, but yeah, I don't see him moving at
You
this
know,
point in his career. I mean, what is he, like 41? Still put
yeah,
up the numbers, still plays. He's one of the best players on the court when he steps on it, but
it's incredible.
it's
It's
just,
incredible.
yeah, it is incredible what he's doing, but I don't think LA, even with Luca, I don't care how much weight he loses or how much he works out, he doesn't play defense. So I don't think so for them. And you want to talk a little baseball? Some news and notes. How about the James? You're speaking of guy who's lighting. How about James Woods? For
James, James Wood, who we spoke about, I think last week or the week before,
you
because
mentioned him last week, yeah.
he's a rookie who's on the radar, but he's like 6'7", 220,
Oh, he's a
lefty.
monster.
He's got a sweet swing. Well, yesterday he went 5 for 5 against the Tigers. You know, the Tigers are one of the best teams in
Yeah, they
baseball.
are.
He went 5 for 5. And here's the record, which is interesting to me for a number of reasons. But since 1933, since that was the first All-Star game, so you've essentially left out the whole career of Babe Ruth. I'll just mention that. Um, but since 1933, only four guys at the All-Star break. And remember, it's different times every year. It's not necessarily 81 games and we stop, but only four guys in the history of baseball dating back to 1933. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that's, almost 100 years. Only four guys have at least 20 homers. James Wood hit his 23rd last night, 60 RBIs and 10 stolen bases before the All-Star break. And it's A-Rod in 1998, Mike Trout, the great Mike Trout, who I feel terrible for because his career has been sent to injury,
Right.
and he's lost with the Angels. We'll never know why he didn't sign with the Phillies or do something different. But A-Rod, Mike Trout, Fernando Tatis Jr., and now James Wood. Again, at least 20 homers, 60 RBIs, 10 stolen bases. That means you can hit for power and you can run. And this guy's going to be a superstar. He's going to be in the home run derby. So if nobody's watched him yet, you probably want to watch him in the home run derby. But watch what a sweet swing he has. And again, 6'7". Probably going to be the rookie of the year, I would guess.
I would
But
think
yeah,
so.
he's really one to watch. The other thing I wanted to talk about briefly, the big July 4th weekend series between the Mets and the Yankees, right? The biggest thing in baseball, right? Well, since Friday the 13th of last month, the Mets are 5-14. They're tied for 29th in record. And the
Wow.
Yankees are 6-14. They're in 26th. So got a lot more, they got a lot more problems than the Mets Yankees super duper 3-game series at Citi Field. But both of them started like gangbusters. The Mets had the best record in basketball and baseball for a while, and the Yankees had like an 8-game league, and now the Blue Jays are ahead of them. And I think the Mets are in second place now. Didn't the Phillies just pass the Mets? Are the Phillies
He
in first?
did. Yeah, Phil's are ahead of the Mets.
So it just shows you how quickly things can turn around. That's in the span of less than 20 games for the Mets. And it's the 162 games. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Blah 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 blah. But um, I thought losing Cole would catch up with the Yankees, and I think that is partly. And still, their new closer really hasn't been lights out like you were hoping he'd be. Threw a wild pitch the other day in the ninth inning, I think, to let the game be tied or to lose the game. Um, they both have troubles. They both have problems, and they've turned their respective divisions into real fights now.
Yeah, this is true.
Because if you asked a month ago who's going to be the leaders at the All-Star break between the NL East and the AL East, nobody would have said the Blue Jays and the Phillies. I'm sorry. It just wouldn't have been said. So yeah, you look forward to it if you're a Yankee or a Met fan, but these guys need wins more than anything else right now. It's not about beating the Mets or beating the Yankees. I don't think they can get tonight because both of them have been terrible. I mean, really terrible the last 20 games. But we'll see. I wanted to mention the blast from the past name who I've watched the last week throw, and boy, he looks like the old Jacob deGrom. Jacob deGrom, after having those injuries for a couple of years, didn't
Yeah,
do much. This year for the Texas Rangers, he's 9-2 with a 2.13 ERA. And in his last 14 starts, he has 17 starts by the All-Star break. That's about as many as you can have, 34 for the year. because now you get 4 days of rest between starts. In his last 14 starts, there is no start where he gave up more than 2 runs. That's pretty
That's
incredible.
pretty good.
That's like the old DeGrom. If you watch DeGrom when he was a superstar in the Mets, you're not surprised by this. It's just as we always say, comma, if he's
If
healthy.
you're healthy.
If he's healthy, he's the Cy Young candidate, which he is. Um, I did want to mention also Tariq Skubal. I mean, we've talked about these guys now. He's 10-2 with a 2.15 ERA. And I feel terrible for Paul Skeens, who we've talked a lot about. He was fantastic last year. His ERA is 2.03 this year.
That's fantastic.
He's 4-7.
I know. That's why the wins lost it don't mean as much.
He,
That ERA is ridiculous.
and not only that, how about this record? Boy, I hope I can find it quick. How about this stat? Again, stats you never heard of even 10 years ago. Uh, Paul Skeens has the lowest ERA ever in the history of baseball in a 10-game span when the pitcher won 0 or 1 game.
That's unbelievable.
And his ERA for these 10 games, which is why you're right about win-loss, I don't think it's worthless, but I think it's worth something, but not as much as we used to give credit for.
Sure.
Keynes' ERA his last 10 starts, where he won, I think, 1 game, is 1.44. The prior record was Jeff Samardzija. Remember Samardzija with the 2014 Cubs? His ERA was 1.46. And then there's a guy named Bob Harmon, who I assume you know from the Phillies of 1918. His ERA was 1.91. I think. No, I'm sorry, 1.52. He did it in 1918 for the Phillies. So again, Bob Harmon lost in history. Jeff Samardzija kind of lost in history, unless you remember him. But Skeens is, again, I don't know how it lasts that he stays there. I mean, can you imagine having a 1.44 ERA? Now, they said that year when Gibson, 1968, the year of the pitcher, Gibson's ERA was 1.12. His record was 22-9. And guys with a brain walked around and saying, this guy had a 1.12 and lost 9 games?
Right. That's why that's like you said, it doesn't mean what it should mean, but it does mean something. But it's kind of weird how they give you the wins if it's. I know there's no better way to do it, maybe, but it's in baseball that is odd because his.
Yeah,
I would,
I got two more quick ones on the pitch.
yeah,
Hunter Brown of the Astros, 1.82, 9-3. He's come out of nowhere to be like a number 1 starter, frankly. And then we did talk about Jacob Misiorowski of Milwaukee and those incredible 3 starts he had, where he had given up like 3 hits in 17 innings or something. Against the Mets in the second inning the other day, Nimmo hit a grand slam off him for the Mets. So in 1 inning, he gave up 3 hits, 5 runs, 2 homers, including a grand slam. And in the prior 17, he had given up 3 hits total, 2 runs, and 1 homer. So, they got to him one day, but he's a rookie. So you got to give him a lot of credit. But he's going to be heard from. And he still got fantastic numbers even after that one poor start where he took his first loss. He's 3-1. At least he won those first 3 games for the Milwaukee Brewers.
good stuff, my man. You got any plans for 4th of July?
4th of July, just gonna hang out with my fiance and ponder life. And as you know, I'm in the process of moving and getting married, so there's a lot to
You got a
do.
lot going on. Well, you have to squeeze in one thing that it's 4th of July, and Joey Chestnut makes his triumphant return to Coney Island, going for
11
his
a.m. 11 a.m. Eastern.
going for his 17th title. He was out last year because of contract thing with something he signed for
Oh,
eating
that's right.
natural hot dogs or whatever. A guy,
Well, you know why, Joe? You know why, even for Joey
how
Chestnut.
about that? Guy ate, although I gotta give him credit, the guy who won last year ate 58 in 10 minutes. That's pretty good. But Joey, he's in the 70s. I don't know if anyone's gonna touch him when he's in there. When he's
I
in
actually saw an interview with him on ESPN, and he said, "Well, I'm in my 40s now, so we don't know what's going to happen. So we'll see what happens.
I
Whatever."
wonder if there's a decline, if they have analytics when you decline if you're an eating champion. But we shall see. That's 11 a.m. You say, my friend?
That's what I heard on the Sports Center today.
Fantastic. All right. Well, we shall see. Happy 4th, my friend, to you and your fiance and everyone out there. You can catch Steve's stuff on his daily Facebook forum page. Speaking of sports, Steve Kallas also has videos on westchestercountypost.com. catch this podcast on YouTube every Friday. And you can find me on Twitter at Staszak 975 or on Instagram at Staszak 4799. Good stuff, my friend. Have a good day.
Always a pleasure, Joe.
Appreciate it, folks. Be safe, and we'll talk to you next time.